everybody might not be loyal to their block, but for the most part, if you from that block, you're loyal to that block.
That quote hits different now because new footage of New Jersey goons allegedly robbing Fetty Wap is going viral. What happened in that moment has people talking, and the details behind the robbery are even messier than fans expected. The footage that got the whole internet going crazy. Willie Jr., Maxwell II, was born on June 7, 1991, in Paterson, New Jersey, and he came into this world dealing with something that most people will never have to face. He was born with congenital glaucoma in both of his eyes. The doctors came through and saved his right eye, but they had to remove the left one completely and fit him with a prosthetic. Growing up in Paterson, rocking a prosthetic eye in a city that is known for testing you every single day if you look even a little bit different, that was not no cakewalk. He spoke on it himself.
I was growing up with one eye, because I mean, kids are brutal.
And Fetty kept it 100 about how that environment molded him from jump.
The snaps and teasing was crazy.
I mean, I'm from Paterson, so like I learned how to fight early.
That is a man telling you straight up that the city he repped the hardest is the same city that forced him to toughen up before he even had a chance to be a kid. And that push and pull between loving where you come from and knowing that those same blocks can flip on you any given day, that is the thread that runs through every single thing we are about to break down. He went to Eastside High School, but bounced out to go all in on the music. He caught the bug around 2013 and hit the booth almost right away. Real talk, Trap Queen was only the second or third song he ever laid down in a studio. He chopped it up about how that whole wave started.
I never planned on being a singer, you know what I'm saying? Like I went in the studio one day, bro.
And then he laid out the exact moment when that signature sound just came to him out of nowhere.
And I was like, see my Trap Queen, let her hit the beat. I was like, no, I don't like how that sound, bro. And I was like, run it back, and run it back. And I was like, 1738, and it just was coming out.
That moment in the lab would flip his whole life upside down. Trap Queen went from a SoundCloud Lucy to a #2 smash on the Billboard Hot 100 in May of 2015, sitting in the top 10 for 25 weeks straight, and eventually going diamond certified by the RIAA. The follow-up bangers 6, 7, 9, and My Way, which Drake slid on after vibing to it, both cracked the top 10 as well. His self-titled debut album dropped on September 25th, 2015, debuted at the #1 spot on the Billboard 200, and just like that, the kid from the trenches of Paterson who used to hustle mixtapes hand to hand on the corner was suddenly one of the biggest names in the whole rap game. But even while all that bread was stacking up, even while the PJs and the foreign whips and the sold-out tours were rolling in, the streets of Paterson never switched up from what they always been. And the people who were closest to Fetty understood that better than anybody. He talked about how his own dogs from the block basically told him to fall back so he could stay alive.
Now is it true your boys in Paterson, when Trap Queen blew up, they told you, stay out the hood because we want you to make it?
Fetty confirmed that was facts and broke down just how hot the block really was for him.
I don't really know how to put it. Like, it's just crazy. You feel me? Like, you could just, 1 minute you outside, next minute.
1 minute you outside kicking it, next minute the whole vibe changes. That is Paterson. That is the reality of the place that turned Fetty Wap into who he is as an artist and as a man. And in March of 2017, that reality pulled up on him in the worst way imaginable. The night everything went left. It was the wee hours of Sunday morning, March 26, 2017, somewhere around 5 a.m., and Fetty Wap and his squad were doing what they had done 100 times before without even thinking twice about it. They were sliding through to grab some food at the Montclair Deli on Montclair Avenue near Paxton Street in Paterson. This was a 24-hour spot that Fetty had been pulling up to for years with zero issues. It was supposed to be a regular late-night munch run. It was supposed to be just another night where you go cop some food and dip back to the crib. But on this particular night, a rival crew walked up in that deli right behind Fetty and his people, and everything went completely sideways in a matter of minutes. The confrontation that jumped off inside that deli was not some random beef that materialized out of thin air. This was tied to a deep-rooted situation between Fetty and a local hip-hop promoter named Raheem Thomas, who also went by Fuzz, and the static between those two had been building for a minute over music deals and politics within the local rap scene. What happened next got captured on surveillance footage that TMZ later got their hands on and aired out for the whole world to see. And it turned into one of the most watched street incidents in the history of hip-hop. In that wild footage, Fetty is briefly visible in the middle of the commotion while Raheem Thomas stands out in a red jacket and white shirt, looking like he is brandishing what appears to be a burner. The whole crowd inside that deli panics and starts scattering the second that tool comes out. And what got taken from Fetty that night was not just some regular drip, it was a statement piece. It was an emblem. His signature 1738 chain, the chain that repped his whole crew, and the Remy Martin shoutout that became the anthem on Trap Queen, along with more jewelry and cash reportedly totaling over $450,000 in value, got ripped right off his neck. That 1738 chain was everything to him. It was identity. It was loyalty. It was a symbol that screamed, I made it out the mud, and I brought my whole gang with me. And in one grimy, violent moment inside a corner store at 5 in the morning, all of that was gone. But the robbery itself was just the beginning of how bad that night would get. The situation did not stay contained inside that deli. It spilled out onto the street, and that is when everything escalated to a whole different level of catastrophic. A full-blown shootout erupted that ended up sending 3 men to the hospital with gunshot wounds, 1 hit in the leg, 1 hit in the torso, and a 3rd who took himself over to Hackensack University Medical Center. The cops pulled up after getting reports of shots fired around 5 in the morning. Fetty himself walked away without a scratch and was not considered a suspect, and his people were not initially named as shooters by the authorities. Some reports that came out later suggested that rounds from Fetty's side might have actually been the ones that landed, but official statements made it clear that neither the rapper nor his entourage caught any charges connected to the shooting or the robbery. And right here is where the story takes a turn that only makes sense if you understand the code that Fetty Wap has lived by his whole life. Fetty reportedly would not file a police report and refused to cooperate with the investigation at all, reportedly telling the people around him to let the streets handle it instead of bringing law enforcement into the equation. In the days right after the robbery, instead of staying out of sight or playing the victim role or acting shook, Fetty was photographed rocking brand new heavy chains and flashing stacks of cash, sending a message louder than any bar he ever spit that said, you can take what is on me, but you cannot take what is in me. Meanwhile, the dude who allegedly put this whole play together went and made one of the most boneheaded moves a stick-up kid has ever made in the history of doing dirt. Raheem Thomas got knocked within days after he hopped on Instagram and posted a flick of himself flexing Fetty's stolen 1738 chain while wearing the exact same red fit from the deli surveillance video. Just sit with that for a second. You rob one of the most famous rappers walking the earth, the whole thing is on camera, and then you go on the gram and cheese it up with the stolen property while wearing the same outfit you had on during the lick. That is not no criminal mastermind behavior. That is a dude who was begging to get bagged. Thomas initially caught charges for aggravated assault and weapons offenses, but the prosecutors came back and stacked it up with first-degree armed robbery, receiving stolen property and additional gun counts including possession of a handgun loaded with hollow tips. His brother Latwin Thomas caught related charges for allegedly scooping up a backpack full of bread during the robbery. Another Patterson local named Sylvester Huffin got hit with 2 counts of attempted murder and weapons violations tied to the shooting that went down afterward. The legal proceedings dragged on for 2 whole years until Raheem Thomas and his brother finally copped pleas to reduce charges in 2019, right when they were about to start picking a jury. Thomas got handed a 5-year bid for theft and a felony gun prohibition charge. His brother walked with time served. Huffin reportedly caught a 9-year sentence, and through every single court date and every single hearing, Fetty Wap never took that stand, never cooperated, never broke the code that those Patterson streets drilled into him from the time he was old enough to walk outside. But the 2017 robbery was just one chapter in a series of blows that would test Fetty Wap in ways that no amount of street credibility could have ever prepared him for. His 4-year-old daughter Lauren Maxwell tragically passed away in June of 2021 from complications of congenital cardiac anomalies and arrhythmia. He also lost a younger brother around late 2020, and then came the knockout punch that pulled him off the map completely. In 2021, Fetty got booked at Rolling Loud Festival on federal drug trafficking charges, accused of being plugged into a multi-million-dollar operation pushing cocaine, heroin, fentanyl, and crack. He got sentenced in May 2023 to 6 years in the federal system. He opened up about what that stretch behind the wall was really like, about the mental weight it put on him, and about the headspace he was in when the feds came knocking.
It was like a really bad time for me at that time. Yeah, like 4 months prior to that, you know, I had just like lost my daughter. So mentally, I wasn't really like, it was just like whatever, like this doesn't faze me.
Losing his baby girl had him so far gone mentally that when the federal indictment dropped, he described himself as being completely numb to it.
So mentally, I wasn't really like, it was just like whatever, like this This doesn't faze me.
When he got asked if he felt like a zombie walking through life during that dark stretch, he did not hesitate at all.
Have you heard that phrase? Some people say they felt like they were a zombie walking.
Yeah, for sure.
Is that how you felt?
For sure.
But somewhere inside those prison walls, something in him started to shift. He locked in and got his GED. He went deep into mental health work, really doing the inner work that most people talk about but never actually commit to. And when somebody asked him what he was searching for, in all that self-reflection, his answer was not what a single soul expected to hear.
What were you seeking answers to?
I wasn't actually seeking answers. I was just apologizing to myself.
Apologizing to himself. Think about that. That is a man who went from being one of the hottest artists on the planet to getting robbed in his own city, to burying his daughter, to sitting in a federal cell. And the person he felt he owed the biggest apology to was the person staring back at him in the mirror. Fetty was released early on January 8th, 2026 to community confinement, followed by 5 years of supervised release. He came home looking different, thinking different, and carrying what he described as a clear head for the first time in way too long. He talked about what changed inside of him during that bid.
Told myself, this time around, I'm really control the way I move. You know what I'm saying? Control my anger, control my temper.
And he spoke on letting go of the ego that had been holding him back from leveling up as a person.
Like, once you take your pride away, you start living your life.
That is the Fetty Wap who touched back down in January of 2026. A man who had been through the ringer, through robbery and loss and prison and a whole lot of soul searching, and who was finally locked in on starting fresh. His new album, Xavier, dropped on March 27th, 2026. And for the first time in what felt like forever, the outlook was looking more promising than the rear view. And then, barely a week later, that surveillance footage from Patterson hit the internet and dragged the whole conversation right back to the same streets, the same dangers, and the same questions that have been haunting Fetty Wap's circle since day one. Same streets, same story, different day. When that 51-second clip of Fuzzy Fazzu getting run down at gunpoint on a Patterson block in the middle of the afternoon went viral on April 2nd, 2026, it was not just another robbery video circulating through the timeline. It was a flashback. It was 2017 running it back like a bad dream. Only this time, the details hit different in a way that made the whole situation feel even more unsettling than the original. Peep the differences for a second. In 2017, the robbery popped off in the pre-dawn hours around 5 in the morning, inside and outside of a deli, a spot where Fetty's crew had been sliding through for years. That whole situation grew out of a beef that had been simmering with a known op. There was history there was smoke behind it, but in 2026, the play went down in broad daylight on a residential street with a black SUV pulling up out of the blue and armed goons surrounding Fuzzy on foot without any previous issue or known static between them. This was not no beef-related move. This was not personal. This felt like a straight-up calculated, opportunistic crash-out ambush where somebody spotted a dude dripped out in expensive chains in his own neighborhood and decided they were going to tax him right then and there. The level of violence could not have been more different either. In 2017, the scene inside that deli escalated into a full-blown gun battle on the street that put 3 men in the hospital with gunshot wounds. Rounds were flying, bodies were getting hit. It was complete pandemonium. In 2026, Fuzzy Fazzu kept his cool, handed the ice over without any resistance whatsoever, and the stick-up boys left without popping a single shot. And while a lot of people online have given Fuzzy his props for keeping his composure, calling it a smart play because dead men do not get to tell their side of the story, the part of this whole situation that has dominated every comment section and every group chat more than anything else is what his crew did. Or to be more accurate, what they absolutely did not do. In 2017, when Fetty Wap was in that deli and things went haywire, his squad was right there in the mix with him during the confrontation and the shootout that followed. That response was reckless and dangerous, and it sent people to the emergency room, but not a single person on this earth could say that Fetty's people left him hanging out there by himself. They were in the trenches with him, ride or die, no matter what the consequences turned out to be. In 2026, Fuzzy Fazzu's people did the complete opposite. The very instant those tools came out, they broke out running. They scattered like roaches when the lights flip on. They left that man isolated on the block with armed dudes surrounding him, and not one single member of his crew standing 10 toes beside him. And that contrast right there is what turned this robbery from a local police blotter item into a nationwide conversation about loyalty, about who is really solid and who is just around for the vibes, and about whether the bonds that hold these street crews together are genuine or just for the gram. Fetty Wap himself always understood this dynamic on a level that most people never will. He broke it down years ago when he was talking about what growing up in Patterson taught him about loyalty and how the game really works.
Loyalty. Like, whether people know it or not, it's a lot of bad things that go on in my neighborhood, in my city. Like, but it is loyalty in here.
And then he followed it up with the bar that makes this whole situation with Fuzzy's crew even harder to stomach.
Everybody might not be loyal to their block, but for the most part, if you from that block, you loyal to that block.
That is the code. That is the foundation Fetty built everything on. And when he put his 1738 squad together, when he laced Monty and Fuzzy and all his brothers with features and brought them along for every step of the come up, it was because he believed in that code more than he believed in anything else. He said it himself when people kept questioning why he put his brother Monty on track after track instead of chasing bigger name collabs.
Why you put him on so many songs? Because that's my brother's real loyalty.
And then he dropped the line that tells you everything you need to know about what drives this man at his core.
I show real loyalty to those who thought it was dead, to those who thought it don't exist.
Real loyalty to those who thought it was extinct. That is what Fetty poured into his crew from the ground up. And now, watching this footage of one of his day one affiliates getting stripped of everything, while the people who were supposed to be standing with him ghost at the first sign of pressure, you gotta ask yourself whether that loyalty was ever really reciprocated or if it was always just one way. The reaction across the internet has been massive, and it has been split right down the middle like a contested call in the playoffs. On one side, you got people giving Fuzzy Fazzu his flowers for his composure, for not trying to play hero in a situation where heroes end up on memorial t-shirts. On the other side, you got people who cannot get past what his crew pulled, or more accurately, what they failed to pull. The memes have been ruthless. The speculation about whether this was a setup or an inside job has been non-stop, even though no actual evidence of any kind of setup has surfaced. And the bigger conversation that this footage kicked off goes way deeper than just this one incident. It is about whether any rapper is truly safe when they go back to the same blocks that gave them their name and their story. Fetty Wap understood that danger better than almost anybody in the game. He was speaking on it from the very beginning of his career, when the fame was still brand new and the reality of what that spotlight meant in a place like Patterson was just starting to set in.
But it also be so many people that don't like me riding past.
Right.
Feel me? So like, if somebody come through spraying these,
He could not even finish that sentence without it going dark. That was 2015. That was when everything was popping and the biggest record in the country had his ad-libs all over it. And even then, with all that success and all that paper and all those fans screaming his name everywhere he went, the streets of Patterson were still the streets of Patterson. The bag does not change the block. As of April 3rd, 2026, no suspects have been publicly identified or arrested in connection with the robbery of Fuzzy Fazzu. There are no official statements from the police, from Fetty Wap, or from Fuzzy Fazzu himself. The phrase New Jersey Goons that has been slapped across every headline and caption is not the name of any real gang or organized set. It is street slang, a viral label that blew up through social media captions to describe the anonymous, masked up individuals who executed this robbery. Nobody knows who they are. Nobody knows if they are ever going to get caught. And the silence from Fetty's camp lines up perfectly with the same no snitch code he has operated under his entire life, the same code that kept him from talking to the boys after his own chain got snatched in 2017, the same code that says you move in silence and let the streets sort out what the streets need to sort out. But what this footage has done more than anything else is remind the whole culture of something that Fetty Wap has been trying to put people onto since the very jump of his career. These streets do not play fair with nobody.
my boys don't even let me go on my block no more. You know what I'm saying? Just cause they know like, it's not fair out here.
It was not fair in 2015 when his own homies from the block told him to stay away so he could keep breathing. It was not fair in 2017 when his chain got yanked off his neck in a deli and 3 people caught shots. And it is not fair in 2026 when a man who has been rocking with that crew since before the fame got stripped of his ice in broad daylight while the dudes next to him took off running like they had somewhere else to be. Fetty Wap touched back down from the feds in January with a new body, a new mindset, and what looked like a real shot at flipping the script on everything. He spoke about controlling his temper and letting go of the pride that had been caging him in. He spoke about just being an artist again, about getting back in the lab, about constructing something that actually matters and lasts. And just when it looked like the story of Fetty Wap and Patterson, New Jersey might finally have a chapter with no gunshots and no sirens and no trauma in it, the streets sent another reminder that some things do not change no matter how much time goes by or how far you think you have moved past it. The 1738 chain that got snatched in that Delhi in 2017 and the chains that got pulled off Fuzzy Fazzu's neck in 2026, those are not just pieces of jewelry. They are symbols of everything these men built together, everything they put on the line, and everything the streets can rip away from you in 51 seconds of grainy surveillance footage. And the question that this new viral clip is really putting to the whole culture, the question that nobody in Fetty Wap's circle seems ready to touch right now, is a simple one. If the people standing next to you are going to fold and flee the second it gets real, then who are you really doing any of this for? Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, click on one of the boxes playing on your screen to watch more similar content.